After my husband's funeral, my daughter-in-law said, "You're alone now, you don't matter." She closed the door in my face and turned off the porch light. My son looked at me from the window, saying nothing. My breath shook as I said, "You'll see how much I still matter when you open my gift." I didn't even make it to the second step before the porch light went out. She didn't hesitate, didn't even blink, just stood there with that hard look on her face, like she couldn't wait to say it. "You're alone now. You don't matter." Then click, the door shut. That was it. The same woman I helped welcome into our family, who I hosted baby showers for, cooked for, helped during her recovery after their first baby, just cut me off like I was nothing. The funeral had ended less than 2 hours before. My husband, Frank, was barely in the ground. We'd been married 41 years. 41 years. I wore black, but I felt hollow inside. I had been holding myself together all morning, shaking hands, hugging people, trying to keep my legs from giving out. The last thing I expected was to be turned away from my own son's house. I just wanted to sit with him. I didn't want to go home to that empty house. I couldn't. Not yet. His father just died. Didn't he feel it? Didn't he need me too? When Stephanie opened the door, she looked like she'd been waiting for this moment for a long time. Like Frank's death had cleared the board, and now she could finally say what she really thought. "I still can't believe she said it to my face. You're alone now. You don't matter." It wasn't even anger in her voice. It was colder than that. Detached. Dismissive. Like I was trash she'd been meaning to take out. Then she turned her back and shut the door. The porch light flipped off a second later. I stood there in the dark, stunned. It was early evening and the sky was still gray from the rain, but that light going out felt like a message. Then I saw him. Through the living room window, Daniel stood holding a coffee mug. He didn't say a word. He didn't move. He just looked at me. I raised my hand just a little. He didn't lift his. We locked eyes. His face didn't change. He just looked empty, tired, afraid to say anything, afraid of her. That was the part that hit me the hardest. I gave birth to that man. Raised him with every ounce of love I had. Sat up nights when he had croup, scraped every penny we had for his college. I was in the room when he met his daughter for the first time. I was always there. And now he looked at me like I was someone he didn't recognize. Or worse, someone he wished would just go away. I felt like I couldn't breathe. Like the air was gone. That's when I said it. Quiet, but loud enough for him to hear through the glass. "You'll see how much I still matter when you open my gift." I set the box down on the porch. It was wrapped in a plain blue paper, taped shut. Inside was something Daniel hadn't seen in decades, something he didn't even know existed anymore. Something his father had hidden just in case. A letter, and a copy of a document that would change everything. Because Frank knew. He saw what Stephanie was doing, even when I tried to downplay it. He'd always said, "That girl's playing a long game, and Daniel doesn't even see the board." When he got sick, Frank gave me a list of everything he wanted me to handle. One item on that list stood out. "Give Daniel the folder, but only if he's fully gone from you." I used to hope I'd never have to. But when my own son stood there and watched me be shut out like a stranger, I knew. He was gone. I got in my car and drove home. My house felt colder than it ever had. Every room echoed. I sat on the edge of the bed with my coat still on, staring at the wall. Then I picked up the phone and called Marlene. It started. I told her. She didn't ask what I meant. She just said, "Okay, I'm ready." Stephanie thought she had me figured out, that she'd slowly isolated Daniel enough that I'd just fade away. She thought I had no fight left in me. But she forgot something. I buried my husband today, and now I have nothing left to lose. The next morning, I didn't hear anything. No text. No call. Not even a damn acknowledgement. I half expected Daniel to show up at my door, confused or angry, maybe even apologetic. But nothing. Total silence. 3 days passed. On the 4th day, Marlene rang my doorbell. She didn't say hello, just walked in like she always did, holding a worn manila folder under her arm. "They opened it," she said. and they're panicking. She handed me her phone. She'd set up a dummy email, something Frank had insisted on years ago. Inside was a forwarded message from Daniel's work account. Subject line: urgent, need legal advice, private. Frank had known this day might come. He told me, "You can't stop Daniel from falling, but you can make sure he sees where he landed." What Daniel found in that gift box wasn't just a letter. It was a notarized affidavit Frank had written in 2019 after catching Stephanie in a hotel with a man he recognized, a lawyer from the firm where she worked as a paralegal. Frank never confronted her directly. He said it would just blow back on Daniel and cause a mess. But he took pictures, hired a PI. He even got audio once, her telling that man that Daniel was too weak to leave her and too dumb to see what was in front of him. But the most important item in the box wasn't the photos or the letter. It was a copy of Frank's updated will. Turns out, after that incident, Frank quietly moved a portion of our joint savings, around $230,000, into a trust under Daniel's name. But he put in a condition. Daniel could only access the funds if he separated from Stephanie for at least 6 months, with no shared assets or living arrangements. Stephanie had no idea the trust existed. Frank made sure of that. And now, after seeing the proof of her affair and the conditions of the trust, Daniel was sitting in a boiling pot with no idea what to do. Marlene leaned forward. "They're fighting." Loudly. "The neighbor on the other side says it's been nonstop yelling since Sunday night." Good. I waited one more day before I made the next move. I went to visit my granddaughter. Unannounced. I showed up at the elementary school right at dismissal, smiled at the teacher, and said, "I'm Olivia's grandmother. Her mother's phone died. She asked me to pick her up today." The teacher knew me. I'd been there for the fall festival, the Halloween parade. No questions asked. Olivia ran into my arms like she'd been waiting a year. She was 7, sweet, and had her father's eyes. I strapped her into the back seat, and we drove straight to the ice cream place by the lake. She talked the whole time. Told me how Mommy and Daddy were fighting, how Mommy yelled a lot, how Daddy slept in the basement room now. I nodded and listened. I didn't tell her this was probably the last time I'd see her for a while. That night, Stephanie showed up at my door. Alone. Hair a mess, no makeup. She looked like hell. "You had no right," she snapped. "Get off my property," I said calmly. "Next time you come here, I'm calling the police." Her eyes widened. She didn't expect that. "You're trying to destroy my family," she hissed. I stepped forward, right into her space. "You destroyed it yourself. I just opened the window so the rot could air out." She stared at me for a second, then turned and walked to her car. As she drove off, I knew this was far from over. But she underestimated how much strength lives in someone with nothing left to lose. And I wasn't done yet. I thought things would get quiet after the confrontation on my porch. I was wrong. 2 weeks later, a manila envelope showed up in my mailbox. No return address. Just my name, written in shaky block letters. Inside were printed screenshots, dozens of them. Emails, text messages, photos. All between Daniel and a woman I didn't recognize. Her name was Amber. She worked in HR at Daniel's company, and based on the timestamps and tone, their affair had been going on for over a year, long before Frank died, long before I ever stepped on their porch with that gift. My heart sank. I wasn't prepared for that. I thought Stephanie was the manipulator, the poison. But my son, my quiet, conflict-avoidant son, had been cheating too, and not just emotionally. There were photos of him at a weekend rental in Asheville with this woman, a hotel receipt, even a text saying, "I'll leave Steph when the time is right. My mom's on her way out anyway. She won't be around much longer." I had to sit down. That text hit me harder than anything Stephanie ever said. I thought back to the funeral, to the way Daniel just stood behind that window, saying nothing. I had believed it was fear. Now I realized it might have been guilt. Or worse, indifference. I took everything, every printed page, every receipt, and locked it in my fireproof file cabinet. Then I called Marlene. "I was wrong about him," I said. She didn't ask who. She just said, "What do you want to do?" I want the whole truth to come out. All of it. Not just her lies. His too. Marlene exhaled slowly. "Then you need to go talk to Amber." It took some digging, but we found her. She lived in a condo across town, a rental unit near the water. I waited until the weekend, then knocked on her door. When she opened it, I saw the confusion turn to fear on her face. "I'm Daniel's mother," I said. She didn't slam the door. Didn't yell. She just looked tired, like she'd been bracing for this. "I didn't know he was still married," she whispered. "He told me it was over. He said he was waiting for the right moment." We sat in her kitchen for almost an hour. She poured coffee. I told her about Stephanie. She told me about the texts Daniel sent after receiving Frank's documents, how he went silent, stopped replying like a switch flipped. "He used me," she said. I thought I mattered. I nodded. That makes two of us. That night, I made 2 calls. One to a family lawyer I used to work with when I was a paralegal back in the 80s. And one to my accountant. The plan was changing. It wasn't just about Stephanie anymore. Daniel had made his choice. He picked silence. He picked lies. And now, they were both going to feel the consequences. The truth was bigger than one marriage falling apart. It was about character. About legacy. About what a man becomes when no one's looking. Daniel had no idea the kind of storm he was standing in the middle of. And I was just getting started. 3 months after I dropped that box on the porch, everything fell apart for Daniel and Stephanie. I didn't watch it happen from afar. I guided it, step by step. First came the trust. Daniel tried to get access to the money, but Frank had been specific. No shared address with Stephanie for 6 months, plus proof of financial separation. Daniel moved out into a rental, thinking he could wait it out and cash in. What he didn't know was that the trust had another clause. Any legal or moral breaches involving infidelity would trigger a full freeze, pending review. All I had to do was hand over the documents I got from Amber. The bank locked the trust down within a week. That money? Gone to him now. Locked until he could explain his betrayal to a probate lawyer, on the record. Second came the affair. I didn't leak anything at first. I gave Daniel a chance to come clean. I sent him a letter. I wrote it by hand. "You lied to everyone, including yourself. You watched your wife betray you, and instead of facing it, you did the same. You thought you were better. You weren't." He never replied. So I mailed copies of the photos and messages to Stephanie, her parents, Daniel's HR department, and Amber. Stephanie filed for divorce within 10 days. Her lawyer was brutal. She demanded full custody of Olivia, claiming Daniel was morally unfit due to his affair, financial deceit, and emotional manipulation. Daniel didn't fight back. He signed the papers. He tried to call me once. I let it ring. Then came the job. Marlene helped with that. One of her nephews worked in Daniel's firm, just a few floors down. When the HR email surfaced, so did Daniel's name. Office gossip exploded. Turns out, Amber wasn't the only one. There'd been another assistant. And a third briefly in marketing. He resigned voluntarily a month later. And then, when everything else had fallen, he showed up at my house. No porch light, just a silhouette in the dark, same as I had stood there months before. I opened the door. He looked thin, hollow. His eyes were red. "I lost everything," he said quietly. I looked at him. My son. The little boy I once held to my chest when he had night terrors. The man who watched me get shut out and said nothing. "No," I said. "You lost me. The rest was just gravity." He nodded, slowly. No tears. No pleading. Just shame. He handed me a small envelope. Inside was a photo me, him, and Frank, taken when Daniel was 7, at Coney Island. His handwriting was on the back. "I was wrong. You always mattered." He walked away after that. I didn't stop him. Now, it's just me in this house. It's quiet, but it's peaceful. Sometimes Olivia calls me from Stephanie's phone. Short little chats. I keep it light. She doesn't need to know yet. But one day she will. She'll grow up and wonder why things fell apart. And when she's ready, I'll tell her the truth. I'll tell her about loyalty, about silence, about how love without courage isn't really love at all, and how revenge isn't about hurting someone back. It's about making sure they never forget what they did. Because now, when Daniel looks in the mirror, he sees the man who lost his wife, his daughter, his job, his money, and his mother. All because he thought I didn't matter.
But he knows now. He knows.
And he never will forget.